Welcome into Boxing Scene's top stories here on ProBox TV. Scan the QR code below to get the ProBox TV app. Never fall behind in your boxing news. Well, painful weekend. Terrence Crawford, Israel Madrimov, and I don't mean Israel Madrimov, who got beat for his 154-pound championship. I'm talking about Vegas and all the money they lost on this card. A lot of upsets, including Jared Anderson in the heavyweight division, knocked out in round number 5 by Martin Bakole, an unheralded heavyweight who could hit very, very hard and had shown potential before. So the question for my panel here, Paulie Malignaggi and Chris Algieri, is too young or a little too light for the heavyweight division for the 24-year-old Jared Anderson? Paulie, how'd you see the fight, and what do you think about the future of this kid?
Yeah, I saw Jared Anderson was not ready for this level of opponent. Now, people would say, oh, is it too soon? Is it, he got a lot of money for it, so, it's a calculated risk. But then you look a little bit deeper into it. Jared Anderson had not been improving in a while. He'd already shown some limitations in the Charles Martin fight. Basically, an ex-world champion Martin, who you'd still have to look a certain, like you'd have to beat in a certain way, in a certain method to look like you belonged at the top of the division or near the top of the division. He didn't look that way when we saw. I think it was against Rudenko. We didn't really see a lot of improvements either, even though he won that fight. It's tough, man, because you look at this fight and you start to say, oh, it could be too soon. He's 24. Heavyweights mature later. Possibly, but then again, you saw the fights where he was showing these flaws and no improvements were made. I think it's a possibility that we've seen the ceiling of Jared Anderson, and in seeing that ceiling, the Bakole fight exposed that. It's yet another fight where he didn't make the improvements necessary. Only this time, it was a guy who was even better than Charles Martin at this point in his career and knocked him out. He just didn't make any adjustments. Didn't look like he knew how to make the adjustments. Bakole is a guy who held his ground, knew how to keep his positioning. There's different ways, deceptive ways you can do things to, make him pick up his feet a little bit, to change range a little bit. Instead, he chose to fight this guy off of him, which he's way too small to do that. So if you're going to be too small, you've got to know your limitations. You've got to know how to be deceptive. He doesn't know how to be deceptive. He's still too small. And honestly, frankly, I thought he was way too accepting of the loss after the fight. I mean, he looked like to be, for a guy who just took his first L and basically was exposed as probably a bit overhyped, he wasn't devastated. He wasn't even anywhere near that. He was like, whatever. He's smiling after the fight. He was probably happy he got his check, which I heard was a hefty sum. But he wasn't devastated from a competitive standpoint. Didn't seem disappointed to me.
To Chris Algieri, a lot of people who don't follow boxing and don't follow athletics might not understand, he's 24, he's got a lot to learn. We saw Mike Tyson peak arguably at 23. That you don't necessarily get better as you get older if you don't work on it. Do you think there's room for improvement? Do you think he will make those improvements? That's my question to you.
Well, he hasn't in the past. He's been making the same mistake. He admitted that afterwards, pulling straight back, having the straight legs, bending over. Things that have been shown to be a problem in his last couple fights were the problem once again. I don't think it was a size thing. I think he's athletic enough. He's got a good jab. He's got fast hands. You saw flashes of what he's able to do, even with a bigger guy. I just didn't see the discipline. I didn't see the ability to make those adjustments that were necessary. I don't see the passion for the sport in order to take this back to the drawing board and work on the problems. And that's been the issue. Bakole definitely overperformed. Man, he's a bad dude. He was very George Foreman-esque in there. Very, very powerful, good fast hands, had a game plan. He knew what he was doing. If you watched early in that fight, he was actually allowing the body punches to land, wasn't really looking to counter them because he knew that the smaller Jared Anderson would have to get closer to him where he could deliver that power when he's going to the body. So I think Bakole is a lot better than people give him credit for. But also, you speak to the age, Jimmy, that was a devastating loss. That's more than just getting a loss. He was dropped badly in the first round, was losing all the rounds leading up to the stoppage. The stoppage was pretty bad too. So when you got a guy who doesn't have a passion for the sport, self-admittedly, has had flaws that haven't been fixed, and then for him to get stopped in a devastating fashion, this is very, very bad for his career. And like you said, Champ, this might be his ceiling.
Yeah, and I don't want to, let's not overestimate what Bakole did. It wasn't rocket science. He held his ground. So there's different ways you can do, different things you can do to pick off a guy like that. Subtle distance changes, feints. What about a feint? You're 24 years old, you're athletic, you don't feint? What about that? Putting Bakole out of position. Bakole kept holding his position, and which is why the champ's point is so influential, because it's important. He holds the position. Eventually, you're going to have to get in there and fight the guy off you because he's not refusing to back off and lose positioning. And that's the problem Jared Anderson had. He didn't know how to break the positioning with deceptive athleticism.
Yeah, Jared Anderson, young, but his future very uncertain right now in a crowded heavyweight division full of much bigger men. But as his career goes, he'll make news, and we'll cover it here on ProBox TV. For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.